I'd landed a tutoring gig for the richest, most popular girl in school with an insane paycheck. But instead of envy, all I got from my colleagues were looks of pity. The girl was the school's notoriously obsessive heiress, whose possessiveness was legendary. Touch anything of hers, and you were doomed. I was her 18th tutor. Just then, the agent, Mr. Wallace, slid a contract in front of me. Ethan, I'll ask you one time, are you in or out? For $100,000 paid in full up front. It's exactly what you need for your mother's surgery. I was about to say no, but the image of my mom in that hospital bed, buried under a mountain of medical bills, flashed in my mind. I clenched my jaw and agreed. For her, I wouldn't just tutor an obsessive heiress. I'd go to hell and teach calculus to the devil himself. The next day, on my way to the job, memories from a past life suddenly flooded my mind. I realized I'd been reincarnated into a young adult novel, and my new student, Khloe Sterling, was the story's main villain. In the book, she becomes dangerously obsessed with the cheerful, popular male lead, Liam, and uses her power to destroy any girl who gets close to him. It all ends tragically, with her family ruined and her life in shambles, thanks to the combined efforts of the hero and heroine. And here I was, an unnamed background character, about to become a tutor for this she-devil. It was a death wish. I quickly formulated a set of survival rules in my head. Rule 1, maintain distance, both physical and psychological, at all times. Rule 2, be a robot. No smiling, no emotion, just a teaching machine. Rule 3, focus on the mission. Get her grades up as fast as possible so she could get into a college on the opposite side of the country from Liam. As long as she never crossed paths with the male lead, the rest of the plot wouldn't involve me. The second her college entrance exams were over, I'd take the money and vanish. Following the address on the contract, I soon found myself standing before a massive mansion in Beverly Hills. The butler led me to a bedroom door on the second floor and knocked. Miss Sterling, your tutor is here. A moment later, a lazy, irritated teenage voice drifted from inside. Tell him to get lost. The butler's expression soured with embarrassment, but I just nodded. I got it. The book mentioned that Khloe had a 3-minute record for scaring off tutors her father hired. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open myself. Khloe was lounging on her side on the bed, her long, pale legs crossed casually. She was reading a graphic novel and didn't even bother to look up. I said, tell him to get lost. Are you deaf? I acted as if I hadn't heard her, walked straight to her desk, and set down my bag, pulling out my lesson plans and a stack of practice tests. Miss Sterling, my name is Ethan. I'll be your math tutor for the next 3 months. According to our contract, if you personally prevent these sessions from happening, I am still entitled to the full $400,000 your father has already paid. Furthermore, I will be reporting your attitude directly to him. That finally got a reaction. The girl on the bed slowly sat up, then rose to her feet and stood right in front of me. You're not afraid of me? Khloe was tall, only a few inches shorter than me, and standing this close, she had an intimidating presence. I'm here to teach you math, I said flatly. It's a job. Fear doesn't enter into it. The other tutors either blushed the second they saw me or ran away after I said one word to them. Khloe then reached out a finger, aiming to poke me in the chest. I sidestepped immediately, putting more space between us. Miss Sterling, please conduct yourself appropriately. Without missing a beat, I picked up a test from her desk. This was your last diagnostic exam. You scored a 32 out of 150. You answered C for every multiple choice question. Getting this score means you were actually pretty lucky. My tone was as clinical as a coroner reading an autopsy report, and the smirk on Khloe's face froze. She'd likely never met a guy so completely immune to her charms. I ignored her expression and continued, I've created a strict study schedule. We will work from 7 to 10 every evening. During that time, your phone, laptop, graphic novels, and anything else not related to your studies will be confiscated by me. Furthermore, to ensure efficiency, I require we maintain a safe distance of at least 3 feet at all times. All unnecessary physical contact and personal questions are forbidden. What gives you the right to tell me what to do? The fact that your father paid me $400,000, I said, and I'm a professional. The air grew so quiet I could hear her breathing. I braced myself for her to scream, to call security and have me thrown out. Instead, she laughed. Interesting. Fine, I agree, Ethan. She put a strange emphasis on my name, and the bad feeling in my gut intensified. This wasn't going according to plan. My premonition, it turned out, was spot on. Khloe was a demon, and she had no intention of making this easy. She agreed to my rules verbally, but her actions were designed to test every single one of my boundaries. On the first day, she answered the door in a silk slip dress, her long legs on full display. I kept my eyes fixed forward, slapped a copy of Barron's ET Prep on the table in front of her and said, "Miss Sterling, let's begin. Today's topic is functions." The next day, she tried a new tactic. While I was explaining a problem, her beautiful eyes weren't on the whiteboard. They were locked on me. "Ethan, you're really handsome," she said. "Way better looking than the most popular guy at our school." I didn't even look up from my notes. "Thank you. Did you understand how to draw the auxiliary line for this problem? Ethan, do you have a girlfriend?"
No.
"What kind of girls do you like?" "Miss Sterling, our agreement prohibits personal questions. If you continue to waste time, I have no problem extending our sessions until 11. The threat of more tutoring made her deflate instantly. "Nice try, but you're messing with a pro." I had the villain's survival guide memorized. Just when I thought my defenses were impenetrable, she struck again. On the third day, I was explaining analytic geometry. As I worked through a complex locus equation, she suddenly cried out, clutching her hand and knitting her perfect brows in pain. A freshly made cup of hot coffee lay spilled on the desk, and the back of her hand was already turning red. My stomach dropped. This was it, a classic scene straight from the novel. In the book, Khloe used this exact ploy to test any man who showed interest in her. If a guy showed too much concern, fussing over her hand, she'd immediately label him as a pathetic admirer to be toyed with and discarded. The hero, Liam, had won her attention by calmly and efficiently treating the wound, showing care without being overbearing. I, however, chose a third option, the coldest, most detached, and therefore safest response possible. I calmly took out my phone and buzzed the butler. Then, in a completely flat, robotic voice, I recited into the empty air. According to the Home Medical Guide, Chapter 3, Section 2, minor burns should be immediately flushed with cool, running water for a minimum of 20 minutes to reduce temperature and alleviate pain. Do not apply ointments or folk remedies, as this can cause infection. If blistering occurs, do not puncture the blisters and seek medical attention. I hung up and gestured to the door. "The butler is on his way. You can go get that treated." Use the time to review the logic for this problem. With that, I turned back to my scratch paper and continued my calculations, acting as if nothing had happened. Behind me, there was a dead silence. I could feel Khloe's stare burning into my back like a pair of X-ray beams. I'd overdone it. I was too cold, too detached. Was she gonna fly into a rage and have her security drag me out and bury me in the garden? Just as I was bracing for the worst, I heard a soft laugh from behind me. "Ethan, you're a really interesting person." Interesting? What the hell was that supposed to mean? When I turned to look at her, her eyes weren't filled with anger or disgust. Instead, they shone with a deep, unprecedented level of interest, and a knowing smile played on her lips. I've never seen anyone show they care by reciting a medical textbook before. "Lady, that wasn't me caring. That was me trying to save my own skin." After the burn incident, Khloe's attitude did a complete 180. She stopped her childish attempts to test me and became surprisingly cooperative. She did her homework on time and actually paid attention when I explained new concepts. She even poured me a glass of water once. I didn't drink it, of course. Who knew what that little demon might have put in it? Meanwhile, between my high-pressure tutoring and her suddenly unlocked intellect, her grades started to skyrocket. Just when I thought things were finally on the right track, disaster struck. One day, on a whim, Khloe decided she was tired of studying at home and wanted a change of scenery. I couldn't argue her out of it, so I reluctantly took her to a coffee shop near campus. I swear, it was the worst decision of my life. The cafe wasn't crowded and was quiet enough to study. I highlighted a few key problems for her to work on and closed my eyes for a moment, my mind drifting to my mom's recovery plan after her surgery. Just then, a bright, cheerful voice broke the silence. "Here's your coffee." I opened my eyes to see a handsome, boyish face smiling down at us. Liam, the novel's male lead. What was he doing here? I remembered the book mentioning he worked part-time jobs to get by, but it never specified this coffee shop. While I was still reeling from the shock, Liam was already starting his main character routine. As he set the coffee down, his hand slipped, and a few drops splashed onto Khloe's notebook, the one filled with all my painstakingly compiled notes. "Oh, I'm so sorry." Liam panicked, grabbing for a napkin to clean up the mess. I watched in horror as his hand moved closer to Khloe's. This was it. This was their fated first meeting from the novel. Liam's clumsy kindness was supposed to catch Khloe's eye, triggering her obsessive hunt, which would ultimately lead to her ruin. And my $400,000 would go up in smoke. On pure instinct, a split second before his hand touched the notebook, I shot my own hand out and grabbed his wrist. "Don't bother." Liam jumped, staring at me in confusion. Khloe looked up from her book, watching the two of us with an amused expression, as if we were putting on a show for her. In my head, I was cursing Liam out. You idiot! Of all the times to show up, you had to pick now to ruin everything. I kept my expression neutral. We'll handle it, I told Liam. You can get back to work. I took a few napkins, carefully blotted the coffee stains, then neatly tore out the ruined pages. I pushed the notebook back to Khloe. I'll rewrite these problems for you later. Then I stood up, grabbing her by the wrist. It's too loud in here. We're leaving. Without a backward glance, I dragged her out of the cafe, leaving a completely bewildered Liam in our wake. I didn't let go until we were safely outside, letting out a long sigh of relief. I dodged a bullet, but my relief was short-lived. Khloe's voice, soft and sly, came from beside me. Ethan, were you jealous back there? Jealous? I wanted to scream. That was survival, self-preservation. I looked at her face, which practically screamed, just admit you're in love with me, and my mind raced. I had to shut this dangerous line of thinking down now. I immediately adopted the stern expression of a school principal. Miss Sterling, let's be clear about the situation. First, that waiter ruined a notebook containing hours of my work. I have every right to be annoyed. Second, your priority right now is studying, not staring at the staff. And third, my time is valuable, and I refuse to waste it because of irrelevant distractions. I delivered the speech with such conviction I almost believed it myself. But Khloe didn't buy it for a second. In fact, her smile only widened. She stood on her toes, leaned in close to my ear, and whispered, "You're so cute when you lie. You were just scared I might look at another guy, weren't you?" I froze completely. How did this girl's brain even work? How did she manage to twist every act of self-preservation into proof that I was secretly in love with her? What kind of lunatic wrote this story? After the coffee shop incident, I knew I had to accelerate my plan. I increased our daily sessions from 3 hours to 4, hoping to bury Khloe under such a mountain of work that she'd have no energy left for her delusions. But I had underestimated her. Her mind was like a supercomputer. Her learning efficiency was terrifying. My high-pressure tactics didn't deter her at all. In fact, they caused her grades to soar. And at the same time, her campaign to win me over entered a new phase. She started giving me gifts, and they were all knockout blows. First, it was a Patek Philippe watch. I immediately refused. Miss Sterling, I'm your tutor. I can't accept something this valuable. Khloe just propped her chin on her hand and smiled at me. Why not? I think it's perfect. It would look great on you. My phone tells time just fine, I said, and accepting gifts is not part of our contract. She didn't press the issue. But the next day, the butler delivered a bespoke suit, complete with a shirt and cufflinks, all exquisitely tailored from the finest materials. I returned the box to him unopened. On the third day, she was even more direct, tossing an Amex Black card on the table. The pin is your birthday. Buy whatever you want. I stared at the card, momentarily too stunned to even question how she knew my birthday, before pushing it back toward her, my expression grim. Khloe, I'm going to say this one more time. I am not for sale. I took this job to pay for my mother's medical bills, that's it. This is a professional arrangement. Please stop insulting me with these gestures. But instead of getting angry, Khloe's eyes welled up with tears. She looked at me with an expression of profound emotion, pity, and a strange, obsessive adoration. Ethan, I knew you were different. You're not rejecting my gifts because you dislike me. You're rejecting them because what you really want is my heart, isn't it? I was so stunned I couldn't even speak. Lady, do you have a serious reading comprehension problem? What part of what I just said implied that? I stared at her. I know your secret expression, and my mind just short-circuited. Then she grabbed my hand, her gaze as intense as if she were making a sacred vow. Don't worry, I won't test you with these materialistic things anymore. I'll prove my love for you with my actions. Before I could protest, she pressed a thermal lunchbox into my hands. I made this for you myself. From now on, I'll make you lunch every day. I stood there, holding the warm container, completely frozen. I'd rejected a fortune in gifts only to be handed a packed lunch. What was even happening anymore? Looking into her eyes, which were shining with hope and affection, I felt a genuine, bone-deep fear for the first time. This woman was completely lost in a fantasy romance she'd invented, and I was the poor soul she'd cast as her leading man. After the lunchbox incident, my struggle for survival got even harder. Khloe's lunches of love became a daily ritual. I had to eat them, but I couldn't say they were good, for fear of encouraging her even more. So every day, I'd mechanically eat every bite with a blank expression, then offer a simple thank you. Still, she seemed thrilled by this routine, while I felt like I was walking a tightrope over a pit of fire, completely drained. My only consolation was that the college entrance exams were getting closer. My ordeal was almost over, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. One afternoon, right after finishing Khloe's lunch, I was heading to the library when Jessica, one of the most popular girls in my year, cornered me. In the novel, she was one of Liam's many admirers. Now, she stood in front of me, her face a mask of contempt. "Ethan, I never thought you were that kind of person." "What kind of person is that?" "The kind who sells his dignity for money," she sneered. "Playing lapdog for that psycho, Khloe Sterling. I heard she even brings you lunch every day. How does it feel, being a rich girl's pet?" Her words sparked a wave of whispers among the students nearby. I gritted my teeth, a knot of frustration tightening in my stomach. I knew this scene. It was straight out of the book. In the novel, Jessica publicly humiliates some poor guy trying to get close to Khloe, only for Khloe to witness it and make her life a living hell. Now I was that poor guy. And right on cue, a cold, authoritative voice cut through the whispers from behind me. "Who did you just call a lapdog?" I turned around. Khloe was standing a few feet away, arms crossed, her icy gaze fixed on us. The crowd of onlookers instantly vanished. Jessica's face went white as a sheet. Seeing the terrified, near tears look on Jessica's face, only one thought crossed my mind. I had to distance myself from Khloe, right now. I couldn't let her hurt this girl, no matter how obnoxious she was. More importantly, I couldn't let Khloe think I needed her to defend me. So, before Khloe could act, I stepped forward, positioning myself between her and Jessica. I looked Khloe straight in the eye. "Miss Sterling, our relationship is purely professional, based on a contract. This is my personal business, and I will handle it myself. You don't need to get involved." I said the words as coldly and impersonally as I could. I hoped that by publicly drawing a line in the sand, I could shock her back to reality and make her see we were not, and never would be, on the same side. Jessica stared at me, stunned, probably shocked that I was defending her. Across from me, Khloe's expression froze. This was it. She was angry. If she got angry enough, she'd fire me and I'd be free. But a second later, she smiled. She walked past me, right up to the trembling Jessica, and gently patted her cheek. "You're right," she said softly. "Some people just love being lapdogs." Then she turned, and in front of everyone still watching, she looped her arm through mine and rested her head on my shoulder, looking for all the world like my adoring girlfriend. "But what can I do?" she sighed dramatically. "I just happen to love my disobedient little lapdog." She leaned in and whispered in my ear, her voice laced with triumph. "Oh, Ethan, you're so sweet. You're willing to publicly push me away just to protect our little secret. The way you pretend not to care, all while looking out for me, it's completely captivating." In that moment, my entire understanding of reality shattered. I saw the dumbfounded looks on everyone's faces, saw Jessica staring as if she'd seen a ghost, and I just wanted to scream at the heavens. "God, please, just strike me with lightning now." After the incident with Jessica, I became infamous on campus. The Sterling heiresses kept man, Khloe's new toy. The ugly labels stuck to me like glue. I ignored them all, sticking to my simple routine: dorm, cafeteria, Khloe's mansion. I tuned out the gossip and focused solely on my work. Khloe seemed pleased with my stoic silence. In her mind, I was nobly protecting our non-existent secret love. But I was just counting down the days, waiting for my sentence to end. The days crawled by in a haze of torturous, self-imposed isolation. Finally, the week of the college entrance exams arrived. I walked Khloe to the testing center like a nervous father, giving her one last pep talk, having already drilled every possible concept into her head. "Remember, if you hit a tough question, don't panic. Just skip it and come back later. For multiple choice, if you have to guess, go with your gut. And most importantly, once a test is over, it's over. Don't dwell on it, don't look up answers." I rambled on until I ran out of things to say. Khloe just watched me silently the whole time. Finally, she spoke. "Ethan, yeah. Is this the last time we're going to see each other?" Her voice was quiet, but I could hear a faint tremor in it. For some reason, her question struck a nerve, but my rational mind immediately took over. This was my chance, my final escape. I had to make a clean break. I took a step back, putting distance between us, my face hardening into its usual emotionless mask. "The contract is clear. My job is officially over the moment your last exam ends. Miss Sterling, I wish you the best in your future. We won't be seeing each other again." With that, I turned and walked away without a second glance. I didn't dare look back. I was afraid if I saw her face, my resolve would crumble, and I'd never be able to leave. The next 48 hours were the longest of my life. I didn't go back to campus. I went straight to the hospital and stayed by my mother's bedside. I kept my phone off, avoided the news, terrified of seeing or hearing anything about Khloe. I felt like a prisoner on death row, waiting for the final verdict. Then, I heard it on a TV in the hospital hallway, the final bell signaling the end of the exams. In that instant, it felt like a mountain had been lifted off my shoulders. I was finally free. That evening, Mr. Wallace transferred the remaining balance to my account, the full amount. I paid for the surgery immediately and arranged for my mom's follow-up care. Standing at the end of the hospital corridor, looking out at the city lights, I felt a flicker of hope for the future for the first time. I made a decision. As soon as my mom was well enough, we would leave Los Angeles. Khloe, Liam, this whole cursed novel would just be a bad memory. As I was lost in this happy thought, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. The calm, authoritative voice of Khloe's father, Mr. Sterling, came through the line. "Is this Ethan?" "Mr. Sterling, hello? Can I help you with something?" Khloe did exceptionally well on her exams. Her projected scores could get her into any Ivy League school. "We have you to thank for that. I was just doing my job. As a token of our gratitude, I'd like to invite you to our home for a celebratory dinner tonight." Go back to that mansion? Felt like walking straight into a trap. But he was my former employer, the man whose money had saved my mother's life. I couldn't really refuse. Besides, this would be the perfect opportunity to make it crystal clear to him that my association with Khloe was officially over. "Of course," I said. "I'll be there." Feeling like a man walking to his own execution, I arrived at the Sterling mansion once again. But something was different tonight. The house wasn't lit up, and there were no other cars. The entire estate was shrouded in an eerie silence. The butler greeted me with his usual blank expression and led me inside. The enormous living room was empty. "Where is Mr. Sterling?" "The master and madam were called away on urgent business. They've flown to Europe. Miss Sterling is waiting for you in the dining room." The bad feeling in my gut exploded into full-blown panic. Flown to Europe? Tonight of all nights? This was a setup. I wanted to bolt, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. I knew there was no escape. I followed the butler, each step heavier than the last, toward what felt like the lion's den. The dining room table was laden with an elaborate feast for two, with a large celebratory cake in the center. And at the head of the table sat a single person, Khloe. In the candlelight, she looked ethereal, almost otherworldly. When she saw me, she stood up, her face breaking into a radiant, joyful smile. "Ethan, you came," she said. "Welcome to our graduation party." She paused. "A graduation party just for the two of us." I glanced behind me just in time to see the butler silently close the dining room doors. I heard the soft but distinct click of the lock, and my heart sank into a bottomless pit. "Khloe, where are your parents?" "Oh, them? They've gone on a world tour. Before they left, they signed the house and the company over to me. An early graduation present." She walked toward me, holding a beautifully wrapped gift box. "I got a graduation gift for you, too." She stopped in front of me, holding out the box. I didn't take it. I just stared at her. "What is this, Khloe? What are you doing?" She ignored my question and opened the box herself. Inside wasn't a watch or a suit or a credit card. It was a set of keys and a property deed. "The keys to the mansion," she said brightly. "And the deed. It's in your name." She pressed the keys into my cold hand and waved the deed in front of my face. "See? From now on, this is our home. You'll never have to live in a dorm again, never have to worry about money. I'll take care of you forever, okay?" Her voice was as soft as a love poem, but it sounded like a demon's whisper to me. I ripped my hand away, sending the keys and the deed scattering across the marble floor. "You're insane. I've had enough of this. Khloe, I don't like you. I have never, ever liked you. I tutored you for the money. Do you get it? The contract is over, I've been paid, and we are done. Let me go," I screamed, unleashing all the fear and frustration I'd been holding back for months. I thought that would be enough to shatter her delusion, but she just listened quietly, that gentle, unnerving smile never leaving her face. When I was done, she sighed softly, her eyes full of pity. "Oh, Ethan, there you go again, saying the opposite of what you mean. It's all right, though." She clapped her hands twice. The dining room doors opened, and two stone-faced security guards in black suits stepped inside. A chill ran down my spine. "This is the only way," she said, her voice soft but final. "Once we've crossed this line, you'll never think of leaving me again." And just like that, I became her prisoner. My prison wasn't a dark, damp basement, but Khloe's enormous, bubblegum pink bedroom. The only difference was the new addition to the balcony. Steel security bars thicker than my arm. I was her pet bird in a gilded cage. At first, I resisted with everything I had. I smashed things, breaking every fragile object in the room. The next day, the butler would simply replace them with identical, often more expensive, versions. Khloe would just hug me, her voice full of concern. "Ethan, please don't hurt yourself." I tried the silent treatment, going entire days without speaking. It didn't faze her. She would just sit beside me quietly, reading aloud, telling me about her day at the office, or sometimes just staring at me. The crushing loneliness, combined with her constant, unnerving gaze, was more torturous than any physical punishment. I finally realized that physical resistance was pointless. She was enjoying the process of breaking me. I started to wonder where it had all gone wrong. Should I have never taken the job? Should I have let Liam spill that coffee? Or was my fate sealed the moment I first stepped through the doors of this mansion? That night, Khloe was wrapped around me in her sleep like an octopus, as usual. I breathed in the clean scent of her hair, felt the warmth of her body against mine, and realized with a sickening lurch that I was getting used to it. In the darkness, I spoke, my voice hoarse. "Khloe, what is it you even like about me?" It was the one thing I couldn't understand. I was cold, rude, and dismissive to her from day one. What was there to like? I felt her snuggle closer, her voice thick with sleepy contentment. "I love everything about you. I love how serious you look when you're teaching me, like math is the most important thing in the world. I love that you pretend to be annoyed, but you were the most worried person in the room when I burned my hand. I love how you got all possessive and dragged me out of that coffee shop so I wouldn't look at another guy. I love how you pretend not to care, rejecting all my gifts when it's so obvious you do." So that was it. She had taken every single one of my desperate acts of self-preservation and, through her own twisted logic, interpreted them as clumsy, profound declarations of love. It was so absurd I almost wanted to laugh. In her eyes, I was some kind of tortured, romantic hero. "Ethan, you don't have to pretend anymore," she murmured. "In here, all you have to do is love me." And in that moment, for the first time, my resolve wavered. I had escaped the novel's plot, but I hadn't escaped the prison she'd built for me, a prison she called love. In that moment, I stopped fighting. It wasn't surrender. It was a change in strategy. I'd realized that the more I fought back, the more thrilled she became. Your resistance just proves your love logic was unbreakable. So I decided to play along. Maybe if I became obedient, boring, she'd eventually lose interest. I started eating without being told, initiating small talk, even bringing her a glass of water while she worked. The effect was immediate. Khloe was visibly happier, more relaxed. She stopped watching my every move and even let me have the run of the first floor. One day, she skipped work entirely, saying she wanted to spend the day with me. "Ethan, I want to show you something." Before I could respond, she'd placed a tablet in my hands. On the screen was a password-protected folder. She typed in a long string of numbers, my birthday. The folder opened to reveal hundreds of photos and videos. I tapped on the first video. It was security footage from the front gate, dated the first day I ever came here. The next video was of me, and the next, and the next. They were all of me, taken from hidden, invasive angles. The hair on my arms stood up. How long had she been watching me? Khloe swiped to a photo from the day Jessica confronted me. "See? You stood up to the most popular girl in school, for me." She swiped again, to a picture of me frowning over a book in the library. "You were thinking about me here, weren't you? That's why you look so conflicted." "Lady, I was stressing about my mother's surgery bills." But she was lost in her own narrative, presenting one piece of evidence after another. "And this one," she played an audio file. "It was my conversation with Mr. Wallace. My mom's surgery is 400,000 short. It's an emergency. I'll do it." Hearing my own desperate, determined voice, I froze. She even knew about that? Khloe stopped the recording and turned to me, her eyes shining with tears. "Ethan, stop lying to yourself. You never did it for the money. You knew I needed a tutor, so you sought out Mr. Wallace and orchestrated this whole thing just to get to me, didn't you? You made up the story about your mother's surgery because you were afraid my father wouldn't approve of you. You did all of that for me, and you never said a word. You've loved me all this time, so why did you try to run away?" My brain completely shut down. Looking at her face, so full of genuine emotion and adoration, I felt a flicker of doubt for the first time. Was it possible? Was I actually the romantic hero of this story and just didn't know it? No, that's impossible. I was just trying to survive. I looked at her, opened my mouth, but no words came out. I realized that any attempt to explain would just become more evidence in her closed-loop logic, more proof of my deep, secret love. And so the days passed, in a twisted, absurd, and strangely sweet routine. I was actually getting used to my life as a pet, and Khloe was, in her own way, incredibly good to me. She remembered everything, that I hated cilantro, that I liked the seat by the window, that I needed complete darkness to sleep. She even learned to cook my favorite meals. When I couldn't sleep, she'd hold me and hum old lullabies from my childhood. She gave me everything I could ever want, except my freedom. Sometimes, watching her sleep, a dangerous thought would enter my mind. If it weren't for the novel, for the fear it instilled in me, would I have fallen for this beautiful, brilliant, utterly devoted girl if she'd pursued me back at school? The answer was almost certainly yes. I started to wonder if I was afraid of her because of her obsessive nature, or because I knew the tragic fate the book had in store for her. But now, I had derailed the plot so completely that the original story was irrelevant. She wasn't chasing Liam. She had made me, a background character, the center of her universe. Was she even the same villain anymore? All I knew was that the wall of ice around my heart was beginning to melt. One evening, Khloe came home from the office looking exhausted. Sterling Corp was facing some new business challenges, the opening salvo from Liam's rise to power in the original novel. She didn't mention any of it, just collapsed into my arms and buried her face in my chest. "Ethan," she mumbled, "I'm so tired." On impulse, I found myself patting her back gently. "Then you should get some rest." It was the first time since my imprisonment that I had shown her any voluntary affection. I felt her stiffen in my arms. A moment later, I felt a damp spot on my shirt. She was crying, but she was also laughing, clinging to me like a koala, covering my neck with kisses. "Ethan, I love you so much," she kept repeating, as if afraid I'd vanish the second she let go. She was restless all night. I woke up the next morning with a splitting headache, my body aching as if I'd been hit by a truck. Beside me, Khloe was sleeping peacefully, a faint, satisfied smile on her lips. When I saw the state of the sheets, I knew it was over. I had actually slept with her. In the novel, I was a nobody. Now I had slept with the main villain. Could I still just disappear when this was all over? As my mind raced, Khloe stirred, nuzzling against my chest like a kitten. Feeling her complete, contented dependence on me, something inside me finally snapped. At this point, what was there left to fear? The villain was mine. I took a deep breath and pulled her closer. "Khloe," I said, "stop calling me your tutor. Call me Ethan." After that, I stopped fighting it. I gave up all thoughts of escape and settled into my role as Khloe's kept man. She went to the office to fight her corporate battles, and I stayed home and learned to cook. She seemed to love our new dynamic. The first thing she did when she got home every day was run to the kitchen and wrap her arms around me from behind. "What's for dinner?" she'd ask, like a hungry kitten. Freed from the romantic obsessions of the novel, Khloe had channeled all of her fierce, paranoid energy into her work, and her business acumen was terrifyingly effective. Liam's fledgling business strategies, which were supposed to make him a star, were child's play to her. Within months, she had crushed his company so completely that he and his girlfriend left the city in defeat. I heard the news while I was on the balcony watering my succulents. Khloe came up behind me, resting her chin on my shoulder. "That Liam guy won't be bothering us anymore," she said, a hint of childish pride in her voice. I felt a strange sense of detachment. The man whose existence had once terrified me had just been quietly erased from my life. It was my 22nd birthday. I assumed Khloe had forgotten, since she was at the office all day. That night, I made myself a simple bowl of pasta. Just as I was about to eat, the front door opened. Khloe was home. She was holding a huge cake, and behind her, two movers were carefully maneuvering a grand piano through the door. "Happy birthday, Ethan." She set the cake on the table, her eyes shining. "This is for you. I remember you told me once your childhood dream was to be a pianist." My heart skipped a beat. I'd mentioned that once, in passing, months ago. I never thought she'd remember. Later that night, Khloe did something unusual. She pulled away from me, walked over to her briefcase, and pulled out a folder and a small, official-looking document. "Ethan," she said, her voice serious, "are you ready to sign a contract that lasts a lifetime?" I looked down at the papers she handed me. It was a marriage license. Her signature was already on it. I looked up at her and just held her gaze for a long time. Then I smiled. "I do, Miss Sterling, for the rest of my life." After all, the payment for this new contract was her entire life. And I, Ethan, am a teacher with a strong sense of professional ethics.